On July 8, 1871, the New York Times joined the fray, publishing excerpts from secret courthouse records obtained from a disgruntled city official. Tweed had cheated out of thousands of dollars in kickbacks. The figures were astonishing. 11 thermometers had been purchased for $7,500, dust brooms for $41,000. One contractor had been paid $5.5 million for window shades, carpets, and furniture. It would never be clear how much Tweed's corruption had been exaggerated by the press. The New York Times put the final tally at almost $200 million. But in the end, it didn't matter. New York needed a villain equal in scale to its giant park and giant bridge. And Tweed fit the bill, in part because he simply looked the part.
He ended up a sad, tragic figure, because he basically took the fall for a system. And the system involved the bankers, the so-called respectable people, the Goulds and Fisks and all those guys who were not really indicted for the things that Tweed ended up taking the fall for.
On December 15th, 1871, Boss Tweed was indicted on 3 counts of fraud and grand larceny, and 2 months later, 220 misdemeanor charges. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, and though the convictions were later overturned, a civil suit stripped him of his assets and forced him into prison. Gaunt and ailing, he eked out his last years in jail. In the winter of 1875, he somehow slipped past his guards and escaped to Spain, but he was quickly recaptured and returned to prison. The Spanish police, it was later said, had recognized him from one of Thomas Nast's cartoons. On April 12, 1878, he died of pneumonia in his cell in the Ludlow Street jail he himself had built, penniless and broken.
He gets a lot of the blame, probably that belongs to a lot more people, who we think of as legitimate politicians. There are other bosses that had a smoother style. I think part of the reason that people remember Boss Tweed so much was that he was so flamboyant, and by the time his downfall, he was such a leftover from another age.
A villain of more brains would have had a modest dwelling and guzzled in secret. His successors here will not imitate him in this, but that he will have successors, there is no doubt.